Sir, do us a favor, walk through the moments, if you would, when you first found out that your sentence was going to be commuted by President Donald Trump.
Well, I learned about it from another inmate who actually saw breaking news on the local Denver television show, the Fox affiliate. And in prison, sometimes the information you get from some of the other inmates, while well-intentioned, is not always accurate. And so then I heard from a second inmate, and then all of a sudden the national Fox television did a breaking news story, and then contemporaneously on the other television, another news network, CNN, had it, and that looked very real. And then suddenly I went into the Fox TV room and put headphones on, because that's how you watch TV in prison. And there was President Trump standing there at Andrews Air Force Base with Air Force One in the backdrop, and he said he just did it. And I can't begin to tell you how grateful I am. My wife, my daughters, me, we're profoundly and everlastingly grateful to President Trump. This is something he didn't have to do. He's a Republican president. I was a Democratic governor. But this is a president who, when he sees wrong, he tries to right it. And he did it in my case. He did it in the case of Alice Marie Johnson. God bless him. He did it for Bernie Kerik, a great American hero. What they did to Bernie Kerik should have never happened to someone who served our country the way he did, particularly after 9/11 in New York City. And he did it for some other people. And so, again, I heard it that way, and then it's been pretty much a whirlwind ever since then.
Well, the president was quick to point out on that interview on the tarmac that it was James Comey and Patrick Fitzgerald who conducted the investigation, the prosecution on you. Let me ask you, because the president was very pointed about this, do you believe you were treated fairly in this whole process?
Of course, no, absolutely not. To this day, I continue to insist on my innocence, and I know I'm right. I broke no laws. I was sent to prison by those guys, Comey, Fitzgerald, the usual crowd, a small clique of these same unelected, unaccountable prosecutors who answer to nobody, and who are now using their unlimited power and turning it into a weapon to criminalize routine practices, not only in politics, but in government. So they were able successfully to do at the AAA level to a Democratic governor what they were trying to do at the major league level to a Republican president. And these people, put aside President Trump or me, these people are a threat to our country. They are stealing from the American people the right to choose their own leaders through free and fair elections. If they don't like what we're doing, the voters, throw us out of office. Don't Trump, no pun intended, I don't mean to be disrespectful and say Trump up charges, but don't make up charges and turn things that are legal and routine and criminalize them because you're trying to take out somebody who you can't beat in an election. And I've been watching with disgust over the last 3 years since President Trump's been president, what they've been doing to him. And it's been deja vu all over for me, because I lived it myself. Fortunately, President Trump only suffered one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. He's been impeached. I've been impeached, removed, indicted, and incarcerated for nearly 8 years. And thank goodness, and God bless President Trump, he saved me from having to spend several more years in prison.
Now, many of your own party actually supported your commutation. Then President Trump went and did it. And this has me scratching my head. As soon as this president went ahead and commuted your sentence, then they started criticizing him for it. And one person in particular, Senator Dick Durbin, let me put up on the screen here what he had to say. Former Governor Blagojevich betrayed the people of Illinois and engaged in a pattern of corrupt behavior for which he was held accountable and which cost him more than 7 years of freedom. At a time when corruption by elected officials is still in the headlines, Illinois and Washington should move quickly to establish stricter ethics requirements. What is your reaction to the senator?
Well, you know, I like Senator Durbin. I've known him for a long time, but, you know, he needs to take a closer look into what they did to me and realize that if they turned that on him, he'd have had the same experience I had, and he'd be getting out of prison after 8 years. The standard that they used to convict me is not the lawful standard. The Supreme Court set that standard in the McCormick case of 1991. And as long as an elected official, whether it's Senator Durbin or Senator Menendez, who ultimately had his case thrown out in a second trial because the judge saw that there was insufficient evidence of the lack of a quid pro quo. If they applied the same standard to Senator Durbin that they applied to me, it would be Senator Durbin getting out of prison now and not me. So he needs to take a good look at what they did to me, and so does every other United States senator, and so does every other elected official. Because when you begin this process of moving lines so that you can fit a set of facts that are legal, But in order to convict someone, you move a legal line and use an unlawful standard. In the case of me, it was a standard the United States Supreme Court expressly ruled was not the law in the McCormick case of 1991. So think about this. If they mislead the jury and give them fake law through fake jury instructions, my question to you is, how different is that from a dirty cop who plants a murder weapon to frame an innocent man?
A lot of people have been asking that question about what's been going on at the Department of Justice. While you've been in prison, your greatest advocate has been your wife, who lobbied the previous administration, the Obama administration, to get your sentence commuted with a Democrat in the White House. And Mr. Obama passed on that, and your wife said he basically, quote, wimped out. Is that your evaluation?
Obviously, I think it's obvious. I was disappointed. I thought that President Obama would have commuted my sentence because he commuted the sentence of a terrorist that wanted to blow up the federal buildings. And when I saw that happen, I felt like surely he might do that for me, since I was the first governor in America to endorse him for president. Every time you ask for a campaign contribution from anybody that might have some connection to your official duties, that is now a crime under the standard used against me. But it is only a crime unless there's an express promise or quid pro quo, and there never was that. They don't even allege that because it didn't exist. So in order to convict an innocent man, they simply moved the line. And I was disappointed in what President Obama did, but I'm not really surprised, because the real truth of the matter is, when you compare the last two presidents we've had in our country, one guy is a guy who belongs to the fellowship of the doers. He actually does things. He keeps his promises. He actually fights. He's willing to invest political capital. He's willing to get bruised and bloody to actually release Alice Marie Johnson, the African-American woman from Alabama who served 21 years on a life sentence for a first-time drug offender. And that stands in stark contrast to President Obama, who passed on her and passed on me.
Last question I have for you. First off, do you believe that the Department of Justice needs serious reforms in this country? Because they have, and maybe not dating back to the previous administration, maybe even before, there needs to be some serious looks taken at what's going on at the DOJ. And then what are your plans for the future, sir?
Okay, to your first question, the question is not only should the activities of some of these people in the Department of Justice, and I believe it's a small clique of some of the same people. Some of the same people that did this to me were the same ones trying to do this to President Trump. I think it's a small clique of a small group of these people in the Justice Department who have unlimited and unrestrained and uncontrolled power. That's something Supreme Court Justice Breyer said about them. They're working out of the same playbook. Again, I saw what they did to President Trump. They did that stuff to me. They call these things fancy names, Russian collusion, but there's nothing to that. They call it sale of the Senate. There never was such a thing. In fact, the appellate court actually reversed that. It was never a crime. But yeah, I think it's the same group. And they are have not only, frankly, brought calamity onto me in my life and have threatened to destroy a presidency, but they are threatening to steal from the American people a fundamental freedom that goes to the very central, it goes to the core of what self-government is, and that is the right of the people to choose their own leaders through free and fair elections, and not have these unelected, unaccountable, lawless prosecutors and entrenched deep state bureaucrats who have no accountability being the ones who turn themselves into political hitmen and deciding who should or shouldn't be the president or the governor, or in other cases, perhaps other elected offices. This is a very serious problem, and I think it's a major challenge for all of us as Americans. And I would say to my fellow Democrats, put aside the feelings you have that you were so disappointed about what happened in the last election. This is much larger than Republicans versus Democrats. This is about our freedom and the right of the American people to choose their own leaders, and our system of government being based upon the right of self-government. And so this is very important. And I hope that maybe if I tell my story and more people look into what's happened here, if they look carefully at what was done with these fake laws they used, and they're not even laws, then I think maybe this could serve a larger purpose and correct the wrongs that have been happening. Here again is a classic example of human nature. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when you have prosecutors who are accountable and have no checks and balances, they do these things.
Well, is this going to be a look possibly into your future, sir? Is this what you plan on taking up, this cause of possible reform of the Department of Justice? Because you're not alone. There are folks like Michael Flynn and other people who have had their lives completely ruined, people who may in the end, and some people who have actually been proven to be innocent, having their lives ruined by individuals who wanted to get the proverbial bigger fish. Is this going to be a cause for you?
Yes, I hope so. Yes, I would like it to be. I hope somebody would listen to me. I think very much so. And I think I can shed light on this in a way that perhaps many other people couldn't, having been a governor of a major state like Illinois, and having gone through the criminal justice system as I have, having spent nearly 8 years in prison, seeing how racist the criminal justice system is, not only broken, but I do think that I would like very much to be able to point this out, because in spite of what's happened to me, and if I could share a quick little story, after the conviction at the second trial, it was just right about the 4th of July, and we went to a little neighborhood to look at the local fireworks, and my older daughter was so disappointed with what happened, and she was disillusioned about the United States. And I told her very gently, as gently as I could, that she should not blame our country. This is the greatest country that's ever lived. Somebody like me, the son of an immigrant factory worker, could become the governor of the land of Lincoln. Anything is possible in this great country. And it's something that we have to fight for, and we have to be vigilant about. We can't take our freedoms for granted. And what I told my daughter that night was, it isn't our country. It's just some people who've lost touch with what their responsibilities are, who've abused their power, and have created a situation where now those of us who really, truly love America should stand up and try to do something against it. And one of the reasons why I would never give in, when they would dangle light sentences or threaten me with 14 years in prison, among the reasons why I would never give in was that I knew what they were doing to me was so wrong and so un-American, and that if I gave into that, I might never, ever be able to do something later on where I could not only clear my name, but also perhaps even serve my country and having a role to play in fixing that problem. I sure would like to be able to do that.
Governor Rod Blagojevich, sir, thank you for your time here on the Chris Salcedo Show.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate talking to you.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing news channel, now in 65 million homes. Get Newsmax TV on all the major cable systems, or go to newsmaxtv.com and click on the Find Newsmax tab to locate us. Remember, Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.